I'm pissed. It's beyond time. I guess, was it Friday that we had this prime time address on cable news from the propagandists? It's beyond time to acknowledge that there are people of all political spectrums who are saying, you know what, let's get real. Anyone who is obsessed with Russia being the boogeyman, and rightfully deserved in many cases, but anyone obsessed with that has to also acknowledge that our own country is just as capable of subterfuge, sabotage, and this climate shit. It's all about control, disinformation. Yet, many people we know haven't changed their views in 10 years or even since before the turn of the century. Therefore, we are dealing with an extreme case of, kind of like the iron curtain between the two camps. If you accidentally encounter someone, who's consuming CNN, instantly get fireworks because people are like, what are you talking about? And then we've got rumors. Everybody's got their hackles up, like, oh my God, they're really making Soylent Green now. It's really happening. They're going to make Soylent Green from that 1950s movie. It's people. It's made of people. Sometimes when people send me, like, oh, watch this video before it gets taken down. And I try to watch, all that I can. But to me, my role is to verify what's on the alternative truther media in as much as we know, and to help people to evaluate these types of things on their own. But for some reason, it's not attractive or flashy to be offering to empower people to evaluate their own information. I don't know why. Call me crazy. It just doesn't seem that appealing to the masses. But let's get into it now. So we were at a play date this weekend, and we're experiencing extreme heat right now, even on the coast where I live. And one of the children was talking about how the heat is due to pollution. I'm not a pollution denier, trust me. Pollution is as bad as it ever was. Things are covered up. We approach most pollution, which is kind of an old term, we approach that with the same feigned concern as we approached the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the continued absolute devastation of our people and the people of Afghanistan with such ambivalence. That's how we approach actual problems, like with the drinking water, like in Flint. It is someone's fault, Flint, the Flint River. And yet, our federal government actually said it was okay to drink the water. Obama famously drank the water on camera. That should send alarm bells off in everyone's head. We know this, and yet we still fall into I still wake up with a sense of shame thinking of my former friends who think that I just went off the deep end, that I'm right wing. Right wing. And I'm a Trumper. My brother told somebody, mutual friend, published on her publication that I'm a Trump supporter. If, like, in the sense that Russell Brand is a Trump supporter, in the sense that Matt Taibbi is a Trump supporter, in a sense that Glenn Greenwald is a Trump supporter, in the sense that Tulsi Gabbard is a Trump supporter, in the sense that architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth are Trump supporters, in the sense that you get the point. So I'm pissed. I'm pissed. It's beyond time. It's beyond time to acknowledge that there are people of all political spectrums who are saying, you know what, let's get real. This is bullshit. This climate shit. It's all about control. And you know what? I've been hearing from right wingers that this climate bullshit was all about control years and years ago, and I didn't believe it because, you know what? I didn't think, I didn't see the motive. I didn't see the motive. Like, oh, they're like, they may want to make money off of solar panels. Well, that's simplistic also. But when you realize that we don't even have data recorded from on temperature levels from before the 1880s. And that's why real climatologists have to look at ice core samples so that they can figure out if this is truly unprecedented, what the Earth can handle, what humans can handle, and as well as how many dials do we have on climate? Can we control it? How much can we control it? Is CO2 the only dial? What are the solutions? Instead, we get this shrieking media, most of whom have no science background or training on how to be science journalists, freaking out when it gets above 100 degrees, let's say here in Los Angeles, freaking out saying, it's because of your SUV, makes zero sense. I used to be upset when they'd say, well, John Kerry flies around the earth with a private jet. And it's like, well, yeah, why don't you look at how much fuel it really uses to fly a jet around the world? How about the emissions that result from manufacturing all these useless goods? How about the emissions that result from carting components for goods around the world on these giant belching tankers from China? I was just looking at this book that a friend of mine illustrated. I was looking at how beautiful it was and everything, and then it says printed in China. So you're telling me that the paper, who knows where the paper came from, right? But the trees probably came from Georgia, made into pulp and paper, then shipped on a giant belching tanker over to China. Then, they put the plates in the printing press and everything, and they print it over there. Then they put it back on the huge giant container, tanker, belching out diesel to come back over here and sell the books. And we all know that this is not good for the climate, especially if we go with the models that the propagandists use. I mean, come on. Let's stop allowing people to exploit our fear. And then what I find also amazing is I really thought that when we realized that, even our antibiotics and our pharmaceuticals are made in China, all of the solar panels are made in China. This is our adversary, right? A formidable adversary. And I thought that once we realized that and we had a congressional hearing about the medications being made in China and us not really having any control over our supply chain, I thought we were smart enough to do something about it. No, we weren't. You know why? Because we were distracted. We were distracted by tragic events that were highlighted purposefully to keep us off balance, make us confused. We have this vague notion that we're fighting evil, but we don't even know where the evil is. And I'm talking about even the ones that are watching CNN, or especially those, of course we're good people. Of course most people are generally good, and we don't want racism, threats, vandalism, assaults, murders, as well as police brutality. But this is what the propagandists do. Instead of looking at police brutality as it is, with the tragedies that continue to occur as they are, we have this veneer with just one of the causes, which is racism, but we also have other causes, which is a lack of will to get into these police departments, clean up the cronyism, double standard, clean up the arrogance, just the criminal elements even within these police departments, the privilege of those who remain in power due to cronyism and incompetence. We don't choose to deal with any of that ever. So we have a media that's really dumbed down, and then we have a tragedy, and it is exploited. For instance, do you know that it never came out what happened with George Floyd? I heard, it's not verified, but it sure makes a hell of a lot of sense, is the cop who was convicted in his murder. Well, they knew each other. We knew that. We knew that Floyd was a bouncer at that bar. We also knew that, forget his name. I don't know why his name is escaping me. That he was also working, how off-duty cops work as bouncers. I think the good people of the United States They just haven't seen what's coming because they're so used to prosperity and standards and truth, in as much as outwardly it seems we've had for decades and decades, that they're naive now. They're naive. But we can learn how they do it. We can learn and we can get smarter and we can say, no, I don't want to focus on this today. I want to focus on this. You never focus on that. Why not? Why don't you ever focus on corruption? Why do we have the same leaders? And I would just, in conclusion, although I have much more to say, but in conclusion, I would say that for Joe Biden to be mentioning cronyism and talking about, you know, what the greatest threat to the country is that he perceives as being those who want to make America great again, aka MAGA, and those who are America First candidates, it is laughable. Even if you think Trump's rude and you really can't stand him, which, yes, I know, I'm tired of hearing you say that, you have to acknowledge that the system needed to be disrupted, not through violence, but through awareness, through opening eyes, through exposing the fakery, the bots, the propagandists. We have to go with awareness, not with violence. And one more thing, when the people are aware, the government is scared, because it's not about violence. It's not about an F-15. It's not about an individual taking on the government and the U.S. military. It's about mass awareness, because when you have mass awareness, you're not going to be able to kill all those people. If they take to the streets, governments have a history of some really bad massacres. Like in India, I think they mowed down some protesters, and when they were fighting for independence, and even in the United States with the labor movement, there were people who were shot. I think it was called Bloody Sunday. So yeah, we've had like that black liberation people in Philadelphia were firebombed. They were bombed by the government in the 80s. A bunch of people died. Nobody really cared. And then we had Ruby Ridge, the guy that was shot outside his place. Then when we had Waco, Texas, and then we had a couple of other high-profile instances of, one family or one group standing up against the government, and clearly likely not to come out of that okay. But if it's a mass awakening, even if half of Americans own one or more, means of protection, they're going to be able to protect themselves from the mob violence and the goon squad that is absolutely, if not sponsored directly, it is allowed to create chaos in order to achieve an agenda. Well, being armed is important, and it really makes you wonder. Like, I finally realized, well, these law-abiding citizens, why should they disarm when the police aren't going to come and help you? You have to realize that Joe Biden has absolutely nothing new to say. And if you think the world is really like we all thought it was in 2008 with Hope and Change, when that was actually a possibility, we thought it was never a possibility. They were laughing at us. We sure as heck should not be continuing to think that way now. So my friends, the ones who think I'm off the rails, I'm done with you. My friends, those who are willing to be on the cutting edge of mass awareness, mass awakening, truth, scientific fact, and experts such as ourselves in different fields who are putting their reputations on the line, thanks for being here. Welcome, and good to see you. Let's show up. So that's my message for the beginning of the week today, on Tuesday, September 6, 2022. Please give me your feedback, like, share, subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for coming on, and I will check in with you later. Look for a new article this week. I published an article on Substack last week about pharmaceutical prices and drug costs, and I'm going to put it on my website, and we'll have another article this week.